let's get into the news. And we're back. Hey, everybody. So first of all, I got some explaining to do. Why did I take such a long break from the YouTubes and the Rumbles? And I want to apologize for that abrupt absence. So look, I'll be honest, I got really discouraged and like almost like to the point of depression, like seeing all of the negative stuff happening in the United States. And like I can only talk about negative stuff for so long, without offering like solutions or some kind of positive release or spin. I would do these videos, and look, I'm not like doing this for money. I have my own ways of making money. I'm not trying to blow up overnight or whatever the case might be. But I remember like doing these videos earlier in the year, and I did it because I was frustrated and I was hoping that I would get some level of release and like processing information of what's happening, and I would feel better as a result of it. But I found myself not actually feeling like I had any release. In fact, I would finish these videos and feel like even more frustrated and more like scared for the future, because like I view this country as being like the last kind of beacon and hope for humanity. It's really the height of human progress and civilization. It's the most prosperous and successful country in the world, and it's a place that I want to, where I want to raise kids someday, and have my kids' kids, be able to live a good life here. So I kind of retreated, to be honest, and ended up buying a house. Thankfully, this was before interest rates went crazy. I bought some emergency food supply, so if things get real bad, I can, have something to nourish myself and feed myself. And then I ended up buying a boomstick. I'm not sure if what I can say on the internet, but one of those metal things that you use to defend yourself. And then I kind of escaped and played a lot of video games. So I was playing, roguelites and RPGs like Hades and Dragon Quest 11 and stuff like that, and kind of like trying to tune out. And eventually kind of started getting back into like the Bible and like the Word and like church thinking and thinking about like the next life, because like, if things were to go worse to worse, and like, World War III or something like that was to break out in like an official way, or the economy was to like civilization was just to totally collapse, like what would I do? Like, it's good to get right with your creator was kind of where my mind went. So I started like reading the Bible again and trying to get, back into like spiritual life, which is part of what I came up with. So that helped me to like all of those things combined, kind of helped me to get to a better place over these past, I guess, 4 months or so now. And in the meantime, I've still been like checking out what's happening in society and trying to get acquainted and processing and reading the news and such. But not really commenting on it because it was driving me crazy. And I was like really in a mental slump for a while, and needed a break, especially when this whole Ukraine war situation was breaking out. So with that being said, there's going to be a couple more, like, let's say, changes going forward on this channel. It's not just going to be like current events. It's going to be kind of a healthy mix of hopefully, past and present stuff that I think is remarkable. That's number one. Number two is I'm going to try to make these more cathartic, meaning I can't just talk about, the country is on the brink of collapse, crime is skyrocketing, and, the world is coming to an end. But I have to have, try to blend in some level of, cathartic release into these. I'm not sure how it's going to look. It might be weaving in, some spiritual and faith aspects. It might be some, I don't know, some bright side kind of positivity kind of thing, trying to look at some of the silver lining of what's happening, or just something like completely off topic, just because I wanted to talk about it and it makes me feel good. And feeling good is important, and I hope that whoever's listening to this has some ways to feel good and to make sure that they're balancing out their lives with good stuff, be it through family, be it through friends, being with relationship with kind of your own spiritual belief system, and whatever release or escape that you think is appropriate. And then the last thing is that in terms of changes going forward for the channel is I'm gonna try to get back to consistency, right? So no like once a month, once a quarter, once a year kind of vibes that I was on previously. But trying to really make these more consistent, at least weekly, which is what I was doing for a while, weekly videos. So minimum weekly, if not more than weekly. All right. And so with that, let's just I'm just gonna like recap real quick some of the stuff that I've seen. You know, a lot of stuff has changed in the past 4 months, I guess, since I've been away. But at the same time, not that much has actually changed. You know, and so we got some interesting stuff happening. Kind of what you're seeing here on my screen. Elon Musk got into a legal battle trying to buy Twitter. Now trying to back out of that thing. Daily Wire. Ben Shapiro's network has started taking over the digital media world, and they launched Daily Wire Plus, and put Jordan Peterson on that mug, and also did the What Is a Woman podcast, or not podcast, like documentary, which has been great. Like just probably the best documentary that I've seen since like Super Size Me. Just kind of a masterpiece by Matt Walsh. Really, really loved it. We had some other great wins over these past 3 or so months, right? Disinformation Board, that was dissolved by Jack Posobiec. It's a nice political scalp, if you would. The Supreme Court, they overturned Roe v. Wade. A lot of people are upset about that. For me, I'm happy, personally. I want smaller government, and I want to support life. And there has been an uptick in mass shootings, a lot of senseless crime. You got that bodega owner who almost went to prison, but for defending his bodega in New York. But then I guess got released, or his bail dropped or whatever. So that's good news. You got a lot of crazy instability right now in like the UK and Italy right now. So that's been crazy. People just resigning left, right, and center. Should be interesting to kind of see what transpires with those two countries, and others kind of domino effect. We'll see. Trans people, they've been kind of wilding, right, and doing inappropriate stuff with kids over these past several months, more than I remember, like let's say last year. So that's been interesting. Interesting time into with the whole like What Is a Woman documentary. So that's been something to be shocked and disgusted by. The Dems, they've been kind of turning on Biden. Approval rating for him continues to go down. Like every week, there's two things that I've seen that happen, no matter what. More money for Ukraine, billions and billions of dollars every single week, it feels like. And then Biden's approval rating goes lower. Like, so every week is a new record, right? Nothing new. Just more of the same ridiculousness. The economy has exploded. The economy has absolutely exploded, like returns or whatever, in the stock market, and people's retirements are getting wiped out. They're going back to work. Pretty insane. And then you have a lot of global unrest, right? So like Netherlands and the Dutch farmers basically getting put out of business after like 1,000 years or something like that of being in, providing for food for the world. And they are, by the way, like the most efficient farmers on like a per maybe capita or per acre like basis. They are the most efficient farmers in the world. I want to say like the second biggest producer as well, like just punching way above their weight class. Ghana is going crazy right now with, protests over inflation. Panama is destabilized. Sri Lanka just overthrew its own prime minister. And I guess the World Economic Forum has installed a new one. Like that just broke, I guess, today or yesterday. So that's kind of crazy. It's like, what is it called? Fresh out the frying pan into the fire. It's just like bad to worse. It kind of reminds me of like New York and its governor. And then even China is kind of going crazy right now. So you have like the bank run there, and then Pelosi is trying to go to Taiwan, and the U.S. military is saying, that might not be a good idea. Yeah, I think China is not gonna allow that to happen, and they even like denied Pelosi's visa there. So imagine that, like World War III it cometh, right? Like top 3 Democrats in the country right? So you can argue Biden, Schumer, and Pelosi are the top three ranking members, and one of them can't go to Taiwan because China won't let them. That's how hot things are right now. So real crazy times. And then lastly is Biden has been draining our oil reserves dry and trying to beg the Saudi for oil, bending over backwards as it was to ask for a handout, maybe unsuccessfully. So gas prices are looking real bad, real bad. Yeah, and so kind of bringing it home a little bit here. So obviously, there's a lot of pessimism, not just about like the country as a whole and the economy just diving to record and unprecedented levels with inflation and interest rates going crazy and consumer pessimism going wild. You got some debt is higher than it's been, I want to say, since like 2020 or 2008. Like consumer debt is at record levels right now, and now people are concerned about the civil war situation. So I saw this coming, I guess, in March, and that's why I had to take a break to get my mind right and to make sure I'm taking care of myself. So I'm feeling in a much better place these days, and I hope you are too. So let's try to stick this out through the long haul, and we'll see how it goes. My quick assessment of like where we are in the country today is, if I was to do kind of a little weather report, right? So I think we, and when I say we, I'm a conservative. I acknowledge that, but I also believe that we as a whole is basically everyone who's not crazy right now. Like the tent is basically broader than conservatives, right? It's basically the commies on the far left who want to destroy everything, versus everybody else. That's pretty much the coalitions right now. So anyway, we, meaning the coalition, slight left, moderate, and the right, I think that we're winning the battle. We are losing the campaign, and I think we'll win the war. So that's my quick and short kind of analysis of where we are right now, over these past several months. So winning the battle, let's probably start there, right? So the MAGA movement is growing really strong, even without Trump at the front and center of everything. So that's been really good to see. You got DeSantis rising in popularity. You got that woman from Pennsylvania, kind of contending, for the Senate seat there. Fauci disappeared for a while and is making a comeback. There's an interesting poll out right now that says like climate change is the number one issue facing the country, according to a whopping 1% of the population. That's crazy. And the Democrats, like neo-elites, are trying to make climate change into like the new like COOF, effectively, as the thing to scare and batter people into submission. I wonder how that'll do in these upcoming midterms. I don't think so well if only 1% thinks it's the top issue. So they're scrambling. They tried January 6th and all these different show trials with Steve Bannon and the like to try to make this into like some fuel going into the midterms. But honestly, I don't think they're set up for success. But overall, like the fundamentals for this sort of like, let's say America First movement, it's not even MAGA anymore. It's just America First more broadly, and not like basically people who just don't hate the country and want to see it destroyed versus those who do. So we're winning the battle. I think like movies like What Is a Woman, that's been making the waves rise culturally, and like it's been one of those eye catchers. And then I do think we're losing the campaign though, right? Like the lefties are starting to wake up to the fact that like Joe Biden is a disaster and the Democrats have lost their minds, but it's too little too late. Like people were trying to make this point back in 2020 and even by 2019, but nobody was listening. So now that the regime is in charge and the crazies are running the show, we're gonna have to like just endure this losing campaign through 2024, and so I think that's really bad. You have war criminals in my mind, like Dr. Birx coming out recently saying, "Hey, I was falsifying COVID data." Oops, I said the word I'm not supposed to say. I was falsifying COOF data to encourage lockdowns. like literal war criminals, right? It almost reminds me of the military commanders in the Middle East who, Trump was like asking them about like troop levels, and they were like, yeah, we pulled out, and they were lying. Like just like blatant like acts of like almost treasonous behavior that in the same world would have serious consequences. Dr. Birx just came out and was like, nah, yeah, I just lied about it all. Artificial crisis to obtain fundamental control over your lives and dominate. And then, but lastly, though, is I think we'll win the war. And so what I mean by that is, you have voters of color, black people, brown people, Latinos, back in the GOP at historic levels. So you had that woman, I think her name is Myra Flores out in Texas. She won her race. There's some really optimistic, aspects of that. Conservatives have more babies. So I think we'll win the quote unquote war in the long run. I'm thinking like post 2024, and the libs are getting destroyed mentally on TikTok right now. So like one thing that I like mentioned and saw happening was this whole doxing of libs of TikTok and how that transpired. It really just shows like they have such a ridiculous, insane mental health crisis that I don't think that like a nation, or at least their part of the nation, can survive and reproduce enough to have a generational impact and quote unquote win the war, right? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. I think that if all goes well, we'll still win. And that's assuming that the economy is not irreparably destroyed, and that war, either with Russia or with China, doesn't like completely upend everything, right? Assuming that we still have some measure of peace and some measure of basic prosperity, I think we will win the war. So let me just talk about the one like main thing that I wanted to kind of convey today, which is in the past 3 or 4 months, it's been interesting seeing kind of some of the tepid alliances. And I just want to kind of highlight some of those tepid alliances that we've seen, and highlight, I think, one in particular that I think is probably most astounding. In this sort of post-election kind of environment, 2020 election environment leading into these midterms, we've kind of seen some fractures, if you would, in this coalition side and also in the kind of left side. So let's look at those two in tandem. So first we got, folks like Dave Portnoy, who basically ripped into Roe v. Wade and showed himself as being not one of us anymore. And by us in this case, I actually mean conservatives. But I guess he's still part of the coalition in theory. But it just goes to show, like, the people who we thought were on our side, maybe they're not. And we'll see. We'll see where things shake out in the months and years to come. With these tepid alliances that have formed and are now showing some signs of like fracturing, really interesting one. I think Donald Trump gave this guy, Dave Portnoy, at least one interview. And, a lot of the sports fans were Trump fans because, sports are kind of American in nature, very hoorah. And, but seeing his true colors here and the scandal that I think he had not too long ago with some young lady, it just shows like the coalition has people who are definitely not conservatives. You can't be out here just like poking around, if you know what I mean, and like being so anti-life when that's like a core fundamental value of conservatism, and still be called a conservative. Like, this dude is literally a lefty, but the fact that the left actually hates him just goes to show how incredibly far left they've gone. You got folks like our boy Joe Rogan, he's also part of the coalition, who we just found out some time ago refused DJT interviews multiple times, saying he didn't want to help him. And this is the same Joe who was like, "Yo, we gotta vote for Trump because the Dems have made us like all morons by running Joe Biden." So interesting kind of turn of events here, implicitly based on some of his statements here, like. He voted for Trump in November, right? He was never necessarily a huge fan, I guess, but he was overall like supportive of the guy. and would take an animate human versus an inanimate human in the form of Joe Biden. He was saying he just can't vote for the guy, Joe Biden. He's virtually inanimate. He's a vegetable. He's a walking vegetable. So interesting to kind of see the colors on this guy kind of turn to a little bit more of an anti-Trump situation. But the main one I wanted to focus on was Rob Smith, actually. So Rob Smith, one of the things that's recently been happening is like in response to Roe v. Wade getting overturned, the Dems are basically terrified that a lot of other precedent, like legal precedent stuff, will also get overturned. Most notably, gay marriage, and they're trying to codify this, right? So, trying to pass laws to make it like federally, unbreakable, if you would. And so Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire, he comes out and he's like, yo, 47 of our team members, the Republicans, just voted affirmatively to redefine marriage and not to get government out of it. And so this fellow Rob Smith, who we almost thought was a conservative, but this is just a reminder that he's not. He's part of the coalition, but he's definitely not a conservative. He says, fantastic. I'm glad these 47 Republicans just voted in this way. These Republicans will help lead us forward into becoming a country that works for all Americans, while those whose livelihoods depend on reigniting and litigating petty culture wars will continue to do that. So what he's insinuating here is like Michael Knowles is like reigniting and litigating a petty culture war. So this is interesting to me, and I wanted to just spend just a quick moment here, like petty culture war. So in his view, the definition of marriage to him is petty. So that goes to show like this guy's a legitimate lefty dude. Like he is not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. I for one don't view marriage as something that is petty. I think that's a modern notion. Historically, it wasn't a trivial thing to be married to somebody. But I guess he views it that way. And the definition of it, it's an interesting times that we live in, right? That the umbrella for the coalition is really broad. And we have a lot of people who just fundamentally do not share our worldview and who are actually kind of scared about the future and some of the things that like I as a conservative look at this 47 Republicans issue and I'm like, yeah, that sucks. Like we need people who are strong in these times, who are not flimsy, right? They're not going to bend over backwards and fold around like for example, the boomstick issue. So I believe the Dems are trying to like take away the boomsticks right now. So the Republicans are kind of going along with that as well. So a lot of things that the Republicans are just folding on. I mean, they really are rhinos, like wolves in sheep clothing, spineless people, right? And so that's my like right-wing perspective as a conservative. But people like Rob are like, nah, this is great. So friendly reminder that there are fractures in the coalition. And let me explain a little bit of why this tweet makes me how would I say, respect Rob a little less. And the reason is they don't have a really good understanding of history, right? So he says in this next tweet more recently, right? He's like, this country is making a shift to the right. It will likely be harder right than most people, including myself, are comfortable with. But we can all look to things like this to explain exactly why. These people are in a world of hurt in the next decade. So these people meaning like the hard left people, right? And this all came based upon Rachel Levine, whatever that person's real name is, saying, so this is Biden's assistant secretary for health, saying we need to, quote unquote, empower kids to go on puberty blockers and get reassignment surgery. Sorry, guys. I don't always know what I can say on the interweb, so I just try my best. So like where I lose a little bit of respect for somebody like Rob is like, it's almost like they can't see how we got here, So like, I think like, so I used to be like considered to be like slightly left in the past, let's say like a decade or a decade and a half ago. maybe even more recently than that. But you know, like it's one of those things where I remember growing up, and I'll go back and harken it back to church, right? Because I was talking about my getting my spiritual life in order. I remember growing up and hearing pastors and preachers and people in the church saying it's a slippery slope. If you allow them to redefine marriage in this way, it's only so long before they start to redefine everything. So, for example, specifically, they're going to go after kids in certain ways I don't want to talk about, and they're going to even potentially like include like animals in the mix, right? And lo and behold, 10 and 15 years later, those things have actually come to pass, right? So now they're going after kids, and this is a perfect example of that. And it's not just going after them in this way to like change them in a sort of like a permanent way. It's also going after them in let's say a more physical way, if you know what I mean. So that's come to pass, and it's worth mentioning like the energy guy. I don't remember his name right now, who Rachel Levine took a picture with like not too long ago. That person who I did a video about like at some point in the past, like he's on record saying like, hey, I also believe in like engaging with animals, if you know what I mean. So we're here, bro. Like we're literally here. Like, the slippery slope is 100% real. It's like it's a 90 or let's say an 89-degree angle slippery slope. Grease with butter and Crisco right now. Like it is a slippery, hard slope. And it only took 10, 15 years, right? Between like redefining what marriage is and to get into where we are now. And so, Rob, to his credit, he does have a really good sense in understanding where we are now. And also like, like basically being able to communicate where we're going. And so, I totally agree with his kind of conclusion here that they're in a hurt, like a world of hurt for the next decade. What I can't respect quite as much is his like complete seemingly lack of appreciation for how we got here. So, and this is something that I want to emphasize, like distinguishes like the coalition members from the actual conservatives. And this is part of why I became a conservative, because I started to see this stuff happening, and I'm like, wow, like this is what happens when you completely redefine institutions that have existed for thousands and thousands of years. This is the kind of consequences that it can have. And so shout out to Rob. I still mess with him. He's still, someone who I would listen to and, and even respect and consider part of the quote unquote team. But hashtag not a conservative is what people need to remember. As we continue to go forward in these culture battles, we got to know who our friends are, and we got to know who our allies are, and we got to know who our enemies are. And you have more fragmentation, someone like a Cat Williams, he just had like a comedy special not too long ago talking some mess about Joe Biden. It's actually really funny. And his aging, I think to like 99 or 100 or something like that as the show went on. There's Dana Carvey. So he's kind of a pretty prominent lefty guy. Just came out with a special not too long ago talking about Joe Biden's sort of degradation mentally. And how he's gotten more angry over the years. This is stuff that people like me on the right were saying like a year or two ago, like straight up. And now these people are slowly coming around to like accepting and acknowledging stuff. So like we are just ahead of the curve in my mind in terms of like knowing like what time it is. So here's that one again. And then we have Russell Brand. So he used to be a left wing dude. Back when I was on the left, I remember him being a lefty and dating like Katy Perry and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's one of them, But man, it's been interesting seeing his rise. Like after Joe Rogan, I think he might be like maybe the most like interesting and thought provoking, and maybe even controversial podcast in this whole culture war battle. And they hate this guy. Like I'm assuming the rap is like a left wing publication, but this is just a straight up hit piece. Russell Brand, an actor typically known for his more liberal political opinion, is starting to lean heavily into right wing conspiracy theories on his YouTube channel, leaving fans flummoxed and upset. Right. And so he's been on a roll, Russell Brand, talking about, Clinton and Russia and Trump. And more recently, he did a video about Ukraine. Short little 10-minute video. Encourage you to check it out. But it was really good, talking about like the how we got here part, which the media has not spoken too much about. And I think he got some love, Russell Brand did, from what's his name, Glenn Greenwald, as kind of amplifying the voice. But it's been interesting seeing Russell Brand get super red pilled in these past number of months. I'm noticing it more and more as the months roll by. He really is right over the target, just right over the target. I would love to hear his story a little bit more and understand how he got here. And then last guy I want to talk about is Van Jones. Van Jones had an interesting statement. I guess last month now. He was like, "Look, these Democratic people are elitist. They're talking about Latinx and BIPOC and all that. When they talk, they're losing people. They're not in touch with the average voter. And one of the interesting things has been this realignment to make the Republican Party and this coalition that I'm talking about more diverse, not just in terms of people of color, which I highlighted before, and prominent women. Shout out to Carrie Lake in Arizona. I hope she wins. But also working class people, people who are not white collar. And these people are being more and more embraced by the Republicans and less embraced by the Democrats, who are coming across as completely tone deaf. If you saw, what's that woman's name? Joe Biden's speech in San Antonio comparing Hispanics to tacos, these people are just Hunger Games level of ridiculous. And the reason that this is an actual shift that I think is worth highlighting is, let's keep in mind, this guy Van Jones, he's the same individual who cried like a little, I'll use the B word, baby on air after Biden won the 2020 election. He literally, but this, when the first guy or two cries on television, okay, I might give him a little break depending on what the topic is. But you got people like this, you got people Kinzinger, who I guess is not going to be in office anymore. You got people like Beto O'Rourke giving some crocodile tears and showing his outrage. That just it really has diminishing returns very quickly. But anyway, he was a hardcore Biden guy. I guess he still is. I'm not sure. But it's interesting seeing some cracks in the armor. Hindsight is 2020. The coalition is fracturing. So we'll kind of see what happens next. Thanks for listening to today's rundown. If you liked what you heard, please comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.